A.J. Brown is a true number one. This is a match made in heaven for the New England Patriots, and I think the biggest thing is this. Mike Vrabel knows A.J. Brown's personality. The sky could be the limit.
I'll tell you what, you put A.J. Brown on that field, a motivated A.J. Brown, okay, an all-in A.J. Brown, a man that could certainly heighten it with Mac on the other side and everything else they got cooking offensively with what Drake Maye was last year, which finished second in the MVP voting. You see A.J. Brown out there, it's hard not to get really excited, especially with Drake Maye's percentages on deep balls.
A.J. Brown won a Super Bowl with the Philadelphia Eagles. He crossed 1,000 receiving yards in 6 of his 7 NFL seasons. He caught passes in 2 Super Bowls.
Day loaded up, taking a shot, looking for A.J. Brown. He's got it! Touchdown!
He was the best receiver on a championship roster, and Philadelphia still got rid of him. Not because he broke down, not because he stopped producing, because the relationship between him and his quarterback quietly fell apart. And once that happened, the Eagles made their decision in a matter of weeks. What happened next is the part nobody saw coming. Brown did not disappear. He did not take a lesser role. He landed in New England next to the 23-year-old quarterback who led the entire NFL in completion percentage, passer rating, and yards per attempt last season. The AFC has a serious problem now, and it just got worse. A.J. Brown came out of Ole Miss in 2019 as one of the most physically complete wide receiver prospects the draft had seen in years. 6'1", 226 pounds, with the kind of combination of size, speed, and contact balance that made defensive coordinators nervous before he had run a single professional route. The Tennessee Titans took him 51st overall in the 2nd round.
51st pick in the 2019 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select A.J. Brown, wide receiver, Ole Miss.
Not the 1st round, not in the top 15 where his talent suggested he belonged. 51st. Teams looked at his Ole Miss production at a conference that did not always generate first-round receiver buzz, and they made a mistake that became obvious within the first 8 weeks of his rookie season. He caught 52 passes for 1,051 yards and 8 touchdowns as a rookie. First-round production from a second-round pick on a Tennessee team that ran the ball first and asked Ryan Tannehill to manage the game second. Brown was not the system. Brown was better than the system he had been handed. In his 3 seasons with the Titans, Brown crossed 1,000 yards twice and averaged 15.3 yards per reception across the entire stretch, a number that reflects a receiver who was not catching short passes underneath and turning them into modest gains. He was winning on deep routes, on contested catches, on plays where the quarterback had to trust that the receiver would come down with the football in a crowd. Derrick Henry was Tennessee's primary weapon during those years, which meant the passing game existed around the run game rather than the other way around. Brown produced elite numbers anyway. He made 2 Pro Bowls, he became the player that opposing defensive coordinators had to account for first on every snap, which opened everything else up for a Titans offense that was never built to throw the ball 35 times a game. Then the Titans told him they were not going to give him the contract he had earned. The negotiation broke down. Brown, sitting on a rookie deal while producing receiver numbers that justified top-of-market money, made a decision. He was done waiting for an organization that did not want to pay him what he was worth. He gave them the green light to move him. Philadelphia was ready. The Eagles traded for A.J. Brown in April 2022 and immediately signed him to a 4-year, $100 million extension. Howie Roseman had looked at what Brown produced in Tennessee with limited quarterback support and decided that putting him next to Jalen Hurts and Devonta Smith was going to create an offensive problem nobody in the NFC was equipped to solve. He was right. In his first season in Philadelphia, Brown caught 88 passes for 1,496 yards and 11 touchdowns. It was the best statistical year of his career and one of the 10 best single-season performances by a wide receiver in Eagles franchise history. He and Devonta Smith became the most complete wide receiver duo in the NFC. Hurts threw to 2 players who could each function as a team's genuine number 1 option, which meant defenses were permanently in a position where covering one of them correctly left the other one open. The Eagles went to 2 Super Bowls in 3 years with that core. They won Super Bowl likes against the Kansas City Chiefs in February 2025. Brown caught 6 passes for 79 yards and a touchdown in that game. He stood on the field in New Orleans with a Lombardi trophy and everything that was supposed to come after it. What came after it was not what anyone expected. The 2025 season was, by A.J. Brown's standards, a disappointment. He finished with 1,020 receiving yards, still a 1,000-yard season, still a number most receivers in the league would accept without hesitation. But his 66.9 yards per game were the fewest he had produced since 2021, and his 12.9 yards per catch were a career low. The volume was there, the explosion was not. What was happening inside the building was more complicated than the statistics showed. According to ESPN reporting from Jeremy Fowler, Sarah Barshop, and Mike Reese, a significant part of Brown's frustration came from Jalen Hurts' perceived reluctance to target him on tight window throws against zone coverage. When defenses played zone, the Eagles' offense was not consistently getting Brown the ball in the spots where his size and contact balance made him almost impossible to stop. Brown felt underutilized in exactly the situations where he was most dangerous. Brown confirmed the relationship had changed. On the 7 p.m. in Brooklyn podcast, he said directly, "Not as close as we once were. I believe that's fine. There's no bad blood. There's actually a lot of love. I love him to death." He said it calmly and without drama. But the content of that sentence, a receiver and a quarterback who had won a Super Bowl together publicly acknowledging that their relationship had cooled, told the league everything it needed to know about what was happening in the Eagles' offense. By the end of the 2025 season, Brown had quietly told his agent he wanted out. The agent got the green light and worked his options. Philadelphia discovered there was no realistic path to running it back with Brown and Hurts together. The conversations ended. The Eagles began reshaping their receiver room, trading up in the 2026 draft for Maye Lemon. And on June 1, 2026, for cap reasons that both sides had been aware of for months, the trade happened. New England acquired A.J. Brown from Philadelphia in exchange for a 2028 first-round pick and a 2027 fifth-round pick. The Patriots gave up a first-rounder for a 29-year-old receiver. That is the kind of move an organization makes when it believes it is one piece away from a Super Bowl run, not one piece away from respectability. Mike Vrabel and A.J. Brown already know each other. Vrabel was the head coach in Tennessee when the Titans drafted Brown in 2019. He watched Brown's first 3 professional seasons from the sideline. He knew what the production looked like when the quarterback actually trusted Brown with the difficult throws. And he knew what it looked like when the system around a receiver was not built to maximize what he could do. In Drake Maye, Brown is now playing with a quarterback who led the NFL last season in completion percentage at 72%, in passer rating at 113.5, and in yards per attempt at 8.9. Maye finished second among all quarterbacks in fantasy points per game. He threw 31 touchdowns against just 8 interceptions, while leading a wide receiver room that consisted of Kayshon Boutte, Stephon Diggs, and a collection of depth options that no one outside of New England was afraid of. Maye did all of that without a genuine number 1 receiver. He took the Patriots to the Super Bowl without a weapon that opposing defensive coordinators had to game plan around specifically. When Brown walks into that building in Foxborough and lines up across from Maye in training camp, the dynamic of the entire AFC East changes in a single afternoon. The doubt arrived quickly, as it always does. An AFC executive told ESPN in May that Brown was a polarizing player whose decline could accelerate once he loses a step as a rushing threat. The implication was clear. Brown's production in Philadelphia had been sustained by his ability to create separation with his legs, and once that tool dulled, the limitations in his route running would become more visible. That assessment ignored several things. Brown's 2025 statistical decline came in a season where his quarterback was not throwing him the ball in the situations where he was most effective. It came in an offense that was going through its 4th offensive coordinator in 4 years. It came in a year where the Eagles lost in the wild card round and finished with a roster that was increasingly difficult to build around financially. A receiver producing 1,000 yards in those conditions is not declining. A receiver producing 1,000 yards in those conditions, while telling his agent quietly that he needs a better situation, is a player who understood something about his own ceiling that the organization he was working for had stopped being able to provide. ESPN's projection for Brown's 2026 season with New England is 130 targets, 86 receptions, 1,216 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Those numbers would represent the best statistical season of his career. They would be produced with a quarterback who completed 72% of his passes last year, throwing to a receiver room that had no one capable of forcing a defense to commit safety help over the top. When Brown lines up as the clear number 1 target for Drake Maye, that safety help becomes mandatory. And mandatory safety help means the entire offense operates in space it did not have access to last season. The Philadelphia Eagles traded A.J. Brown and took a $16.4 million dead cap hit in 2026 and another $27.1 million in 2027. They made that financial decision because they decided the relationship between their quarterback and their best receiver was beyond repair. That is a significant conclusion to reach about two players who won a Super Bowl together 14 months ago. Whether that conclusion was correct is the 2026 season's job to answer for Philadelphia. For New England, the question is simpler. Drake Maye led the NFL in efficiency last season, without a reliable number one receiver. He took the Patriots to the Super Bowl on quarterback play alone. The organization watched that happen and then gave up a 2028 first-round pick to hand him the weapon his offense had been missing since the day he arrived. A.J. Brown has crossed 1,000 receiving yards in 6 of his 7 professional seasons. He did it in Tennessee behind a run-first offense, with a quarterback who was managing games, not winning them. He did it in Philadelphia, even when the system stopped getting him the ball in his best situations. He is 29 years old, in the prime of his physical career, and he is about to play with the quarterback, who completed 72% of his passes last year. The NFL tried to make A.J. Brown a problem that got traded away quietly. He turned it into the best situation of his career. Watch this next video if you haven't already. Subscribe if you're new, and thanks for watching.